So I mentioned in my last video that we were going to make apple pie, and we're still going to do that, but we need to make crust first. So we're going to start off with Flood Kitchen's extra flaky coconut oil crust, and I'm doubling the recipe. So normally it calls for 2.5 cups of whole wheat flour. I am using 5 cups. It says 2 teaspoons sugar. I'm using 4. 1/4 teaspoon salt. I'm using 1/2 teaspoon salt because, let's be honest here, I didn't measure that, but I guesstimated it's fine, probably. 1 cup refined coconut oil. I need 2, and I need 1/4 to 1 cup cold water or non-dairy milk. I'm using cashew milk because I want it to be creamier and I like cashews, so I'm using a whole cup of that. Okay, so large bowl. We need the flour and the sugar. We're going to whisk that up so it's mostly like well mixed in there. It's going to be great. And then I said I like to have a little divot. Okay. So then it's saying we need to scoop the coconut oil in gobs into it. So it looks kind of funky right now. That is okay. It's gonna get nice and melty when I use my hands in it. I promise it won't be too weird. But yeah, for real, the reason I'm doubling the recipe is because my normal apple pie recipe uses 12 apples and I have 22. I'll get 2 more to make an even batch, but I got 22 apples donated to me, which is fantastic, like, not complaining, but it's a lot of apples, man. I'm just kind of stirring it around so it looks like clumps of oil and flour. I don't know. You can use a food processor for this, but like I mentioned before, I do not have one, which is fine, because I've got this pastry cutter doohickey and I have wine. Okay, so if you don't have a food processor, you just kind of use this guy to split up the pieces of oil into the flour. It's saying that it should look like rough, shitty sand at the end of this awkward mixing. Which is pretty much how I would describe this at this point, yeah. If I understand correctly, which I might not, we want a sort of lamination with this, so like we want the butter to melt in the pastry while it cooks, so it gets nice and like flaky, and like the butter and the flour. It'll make sense, I promise. But I believe it's called lamination. Yes, this is the smaller your oil globs, the flakier your dough, and we want flaky ass dough. So, slowly stir in the milk until a shaggy dough forms. I'm not going to put it all in there right away because, like I said last time, flour kind of does what it wants, and we can always add more flour, yes, but you don't want to have to either. I am going to have to, though, add more milk. Okay, so after you have stirred all or most of your non-dairy milk into this, it should look like this nice, beautiful ball of dough. And the recipe wants us to split it in half. So I'm gonna step it onto the counter, use my beautiful little pastry cutter, and then I'm going to form it into its own little ball. And then I'm going to wrap it in cling wrap, which I think should just be named inconvenient wrap that does its job, but like at what cost to Jesus. And so we'll put that in the fridge. And it says to let it chill for an hour up to 3 days. I'm just gonna let it sit for an hour because I want to make some pies tonight. See, like it doesn't cling. It's fine. It's whatever. All right. So we have now made pie crust, and now we're gonna move on to make some fillings. Okay, so now for our apple pie filling. So you should have 12 peeled and chopped apples. And then you need 1 cup sugar, a half a cup flour, 2 teaspoons cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon salt. I actually almost measured the salt this time. All right, and then you're just gonna stir all that in so all the apple slices are nice and coated. Okay, yeah, so like all of your apples should be nice and covered in the flour, sugar, cinnamon, salt mixture. All right, so now we have to make the topping for our apple pie, and I'm partial to the like streusel-y, crumbly top. So you're going to take half a cup of butter, and you want it to be soft because you're going to be fucking with it. You will need 1 1/3 cup brown sugar, 3/4 cup flour, and 3/4 cup oatmeal. Now, as far as the oatmeal goes, that kind of makes it do the streusel thing, but like also, if you get the wrong oatmeal and you buy the steel cut oats instead, that's okay. It's fine. It'll still do the right thing. It won't be quite right, but no one's gonna know if you don't tell them. So just get oatmeal, any kind. I would not use the packets that you make for like the instant oatmeal dough. I would not use that. I've never tried that. I don't know, but personally, that's what I would do. You're gonna take this super cool little guy that you use to make with the bread, and put the dough, not the bread. I've had some wine, but that's fine. And you're gonna mash all this shit together, and like typical baking with me fashion, you're gonna make a bit of a mess, but it's fine. I feel like if you don't make a tiny bit of a mess while you're baking, then you're not doing something right. Okay. So you want the pretty crumbly, and it'll also crumble up more when it bakes, so if it's not like the perfect streusel looking stuff, it'll be fine, I promise. So, and again, don't be afraid to make a mess. Okay, so now we need to roll out the dough. So we should have the nice, very cold pie crust that we made. We'll put some flour down so it's easier to not stick to our rolling pin. I forgot the word for rolling pin for a second there. Everything's fine. Okay. Might get a bit of a workout. So I've got 6 things, and if you have the little pie pans, then you want to use the big one for. If you're using just a regular pie crust, then take this guy, put the pie pan on top, and flip it over, and then cut off the excess. But I'm making 6 miniature ones because I like mini pies. I don't know. I just think they're adorable. And then you're gonna slap that up in there. are just going to be scooping the pie filling and fill that up nicely. You can go a tiny bit over because it's all going to just sink down once it's cooking, and it'll work, I promise. Make sure that your pie crust is like all against the edges, so you don't just have like a random, like, I can't think of the word, concave pie, you know? And then we have the crumbly top. Forget the word for it again, but strudel. You know what I mean? Hopefully everything is fine. We're doing great. Okay, then we're going to kind of crumble the topping right on top of this pie. Depending on how long you leave it in the fridge, if you're doing other things, it might get a little hard because I use butter, and butter gets hard in the fridge. It's fine. Just kind of use a fork to kind of fluff it up again, or get it crumbly again, you know. I suppose fluff isn't quite the right word, but you get the idea, you know. Make it all just not one giant hunk of streusel that you're just slapping on top of this pie, because that'd be weird. And another cool thing about streusel is that it doesn't have to look perfect, because you're just making a mess of crumbs on top. So if anyone's like, this streisel's messy, blah blah blah, then tell them to fuck off, because it's fucking pie. As long as you don't burn it, then you should be fine. This recipe, my aunt taught me how to cook a while back, and I use it every year. I just started making mini pies in the last couple of years because I just think they're fun. I don't know why. I think they're easier to eat, and I don't know. I just think mini things are cute. Bit of a long day, but I've had some wine, and we've got this. So your pie should look something like this. And then we're going to slap them in the oven at 375 for about 25 minutes and see how they're doing. Okay, so I just took these out of the oven. I said 25 minutes, but I actually left them in for about 30 just because they weren't quite like golden brown yet. So now I'm gonna let these cool because I only have one of these pans and I have 6 more pies to make. But in the meantime, what I did while I was baking those pies was I rolled out the pie crust for the next 6. So I already have 6 small circles ready to go, so we can get those in as soon as these guys cool off. So yeah. But we still have to finish the last bit of pie. So take these 6 that we pre-rolled. I'm just going to roll them out a little bit again because shrinkage or whatever, you know. Slap that in there. So yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, you know, as long as it all just kind of fits in there and you can see space to put apple pie filling into, you know? And we're gonna scoop the last of the pie filling into these pies. So if you find yourself having more filling than crust, that is okay. You you can always save it and make like a crisp later, or just bake it on its own and make like those drunken apples, you know? Like there's a lot of different ways that you can use the last bit of this apple up. I'll probably save mine and make a crisp later or something. We'll see. Also, I recommend that you put your streusel back in the fridge while you're waiting for your pies to bake and cool down, because mine's starting to become more of a dough as opposed to like something crumbly. But you know, I will just crumble it myself and make it work. It's just butter and sugar anyway, so. One thing I think is crazy about baking is like, you always hear that it's so, you know, complicated. And like, don't get me wrong, you should follow instructions, but it's really just like 4 ingredients. Like bread, it's flour, a little bit of salt, maybe a little bit of sugar, yeast, and water, and oil, maybe. So like 6 ingredients. Still, that's close. You get the idea. That being said, I've never tried to make like a full-on pastry or anything. Like, you know, I'm not gonna go making patisserie stuff next week or anything, but I just think the baking is nice and like not as crazy as everyone made it sound like it would be when I was a kid. I don't know, like everyone was like, oh my god, you made this bread? That's crazy, no one can make bread, you gotta have a bread maker. You don't, you're the bread maker, you can do this. Alright. So we're gonna put these in the oven for, I'm gonna do 25 minutes again just to see, and then give them another 5 just in case. Okay, so the timer went off. I did put them in for an extra 5 minutes because they weren't quite that golden brown color that we like to see on pie, but you know, they are done now. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Look at these. They're beautiful. God, I love pie. Okay. Look at these. They're beautiful. I'm very excited. They're so pretty.